but you see, back in old Napoli, that's
That's
amore.
amore.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm
Cheers,
singing with Deana.
people.
Cheers to everybody. We love you, Deana.
Cheers to
Australia
you.
loves you. We love you so much. You got no idea. We even dressed up. I dressed up in my tuxedo. Chachi Loprete. He's Italian background. I'm Greek background. Cheers to you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Amore to you.
Thank you very much. How are you guys?
We're fantastic.
Okay.
I'd like to say, Deana, it's such a privilege and a pleasure to have Hollywood royalty on our show because we love you so much. We watch your podcast, your live shows. You're coming up to 131. We listen to you on your radio show. Deana.com, you've got a fantastic page there and channel. We want everyone to go there. Check out your new CD. Check out the fantastic book that you wrote about your dad. It's all there. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart here in Melbourne, Australia, I have always been a Dean Martin fan. You got to understand where I'm coming from. First generation Monkeys fan.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to get into that in a minute. And I just want to say, I take my hat off to you for entertaining the world. You just bring happiness every day that you're on singing live, talking to your fans and making the earth and the world such a happy place.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. And it's my my honor and pleasure. It's what I was brought up to do.
It is such an honor to be here. I echo what Plastic EP says. Plastic's in Melbourne, Australia. I am in Boston, Massachusetts. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am such a fan of what you do. You're singing the American standards and carrying on the legacy of your dad. And certainly to speak about your father, I am a huge fan, have been for many, many years. His movies, the ultimate movie star, musician, singer, interpreter of the classic songs. Even my favorite album, the Dean Martin Hurtin' Country Songs, is a fantastic record. Love it all.
Yeah.
And it's such a pleasure. As Plastic said, I've watched your Facebook broadcasts a lot of times, and it's so much fun to watch you in front of all your gold records on the wall and singing those classic songs, interacting with the fans as they text messages to you, and to be able to join you from Melbourne to Boston to you. It is a pleasure to see you. You look lovely tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's going to be fun. You know what? It's what I'm supposed to do. You know, I get up every day, and I'm alive. So let's go spread some cheer. You know, I learned a lot from my dad. Yes, that's
you do that. You spread joy with your music and your interpretations of the songs, and certainly your stories. What a life you are leading, and congratulations. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
To me, being a baby boomer, and as I said, growing up in the 60s, it must have been such a fantastic time, as I said, growing up with the family. And basically your dad is one of the greatest singers, artists of the century, if not beyond. And a lot of people don't know that Elvis Presley idolized your dad. Could you tell me more about that?
Yes, he did. And in fact, Elvis, it's funny, he would ride his motorcycle up into Beverly Hills and just look at our house, thinking that dad would walk out. He was incredible. But when I first met Elvis, I was 9 years old, and I went to Paramount Studios with my dad. He was working there that day with my sisters, and I'm standing out in front of his dressing room, and at Paramount you could drive up. They were outside. So you didn't go inside. And there was a room. If you were outside, you were outside, and little golf carts would go by and people on bikes and cars. And I'm watching, and I see this man come riding up on his bicycle. And as he gets close, I realize it's Elvis Presley. He gets off the bike, he comes down, and I introduce, we're introduced to him, and he kneeled down. He said, "Deana," and he took my little hand in his. He said, "Deana, they call me the king of rock and roll, but your dad is the king of cool." Well, I almost fainted. I said, Elvis says my dad's the king of cool. And that was the first time I ever heard it. I said, oh my gosh. And so I mean, huge Elvis Presley fan, and dad, dad adored him. but it was that first meeting. And then of course I saw him many times in Vegas and all of that, but boy,
Wow.
nothing like, you know, I mean, two kings, king of rock and roll and the king of cool.
Wow. And did Elvis have an electric personality? Was he so as charismatic as people say when you meet him in person?
To me, he was absolutely, you know, I mean, he had it, you know, he did, and he knew who he was, but he was such a good guy, you know, I mean, he was really, can you imagine being Elvis Presley?
Right.
You know, I mean, he had it in him. He was absolutely, he shined.
And he was a gentle guy too, right?
Yes, he was. You know, I didn't hang out with him, you know, a lot, but I would watch him at the show, and he was an incredible entertainer. And the stamina, and I mean, he was just amazing. And as I say, you know, he adored my dad. And I think they sang about 20 of the same songs, you know, that they recorded. You know, huge fans.
What are some of your earliest memories as a child with your dad bringing friends over, people the likes of Frank and Sammy Davis Jr. and all the people that he hung out with? What was that like for you when they would come over to the house?
It was unbelievable. You know, first of all, we had a beautiful home in Beverly Hills on Mountain Drive, and it was Uncle Frank Sinatra, Uncle Sammy Davis Jr. You know, I mean, this one time was fantastic. It was 1960 when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was running for president, and the Rat Pack they would do benefits for him. You know, they would raise money for them. I can't think of the word right now. Rather than the Rat Pack, they called themselves the Jack Pack. So they would raise money for JFK. So there was this one show they were doing at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills, and to, you know, fundraiser for JFK. And the tuxedos were sent to our house that day. So there was a big side of War used to make their tuxedos. And so they arrived, the delivery guy brings them to the door, and I answered the door, and there was a big tuxedo for my dad. And then there was a medium-sized one for Uncle Frank. And there was a small one for Uncle Sammy. And I was putting them in a powder room. And I said, I've got to try this on, because it was at Sammy's. I had to try it on, you know. And so I put it on. It fit me great. I mean, it was like perfect. And I danced around the house, I think singing Mr. Bojangles or something. Oh yeah, because he taught me how to dance. You know, I mean, Frank Sinatra taught me how to phrase, you know, a song. And, you know, so, but they would be at the house, and they were just, you know, our friends. But imagine Rosemary Clooney, you know, was over, you know, singing Christmas carols. Have yourself a merry little Christmas with Rosemary Clooney, and, you know, the people. And you have Sammy Kahn on the piano, and he's, you know, maybe writing, you know, parodies for my dad. One of my favorites where he wrote, let me see, I've sewn a costume to her face. You know, I mean, he would write such great things, and the guys would laugh. So imagine that, you know, I mean, and Marilyn Monroe came over to the house. Okay, now wait a minute, you got to hear this. Marilyn Monroe came over to the house, and my brother Dino and we did the twist for Marilyn Monroe to Bobby Darin singing "Up a Lazy River When the Old Mill Run," and so we're twisting for Marilyn Monroe. So when I think back, oh my gosh, you know, what a life I've had. And then to go down to the Dean Martin show on Sunday afternoons and be with all those people. Everybody was on that show.
Now, were those stories true that your dad didn't like to rehearse? He would just show up and do the show.
He would show up, and all of us, all of the cast, we were there for a week. You know, if I was on this show, you're there for a week. You know, you've got your songs, you got your rehearsal, you do the skits and everything. Dad wasn't there. Lee Hale, who was the music director, he wore a sign that said Dean on his chest. So he's the one that would sing with Peggy Lee or Ella Fitzgerald or dance with Sid Charisse, and so that they could do their dances. And my dad would come in on the day of the show, Sunday, after he played a round of golf, and he would watch a run through, look at the cue cards. He would sing with the, you know, with Les Brown and the Band of Renown, put on his tuxedo, go out and do the show. Unbelievable. He could dance with everyone. He was brilliant. No one else could do that.
No.
And, and Foster Brooks on the show. Oh my God. I mean, everybody who was on that show was just amazing. And I was so lucky to meet all those people and to be able to sing with them and, grow up. And as I say, my dad said, treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's what we did. He was so kind.
I've got to take you back to 1968, right? For the Monkeys episode, Some Like It lukewarm. I want you to tell everybody how you got that gig, what the Monkeys were like, and what it was like actually filming that episode.
Oh, it was so much fun. First of all, my agent, I think it was Jack Gilardi, got me the part. And I think it was mainly because, the script was Some Like It lukewarm, like the movie, Some Like It hot. So it was the battle of the bands. So I was in a girls' band, and of course, then the Monkeys were a boys' band. But in order to be in this one particular contest, you had to have one boy in the girl band and one girl in the boy band. So they dressed me up as a boy, and they dressed Davy up as a girl. And, so we kind of, we liked each other. And then after the show, we go into a quiet little hideaway. I haven't met him yet. I don't know that he's a boy, and he didn't know I was a girl. And we sat down and we fell in love, and there were stars in our eyes. So it was very funny. But to be on that set with those guys was so hysterical, because they really were, that's who they were. They were nuts running around, but I adored Davy. And, we dated for a while, but he was so much fun. And all the guys were still friends with Mickey Dolenz. And, but it was a fun time, mad, crazy people, but it was all good.
So Davy Jones would come to the house and pick you up for a date. And what would your dad say?
Dad loved him. And in fact, the first time that Davy came over and, he met my dad, because they both had like the same sense of humor. They were both great at what they did. Davy was a great singer and an actor and the whole thing. But in those days, we wore bell bottoms and boots, hip hugger bell bottoms and boots. And I asked Davy to come in, and we were going to play, because there's so many kids in my family, we're going to play touch football outside in the backyard. And so we said, "Do you want to play?" He said, "Sure." So he took off his boots, and his pants were too long. So he was tripping over, so we were out there playing touch football with my dad and Davy Jones and my brothers and sisters. It was hysterical. But he was great. My dad really liked him. They had the same sense of humor. And of course I said to Dad, now Davy Jones is coming over. I have a date with him. Don't embarrass me. Of course he had to embarrass me.
Did he say, I need my daughter home by 10 p.m. sharp?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, you were never late. You were never late. That was, or else you ended up in the den. You have to go into the den, and then Dad would, oh my gosh, not the den. But
you're looking out the window to see if Davy would give you a goodnight kiss. And...
well, he wasn't that bad. No, I mean, he knew his kids. But there was something incredible about my dad. He would every night he would go around and check all the doors. He would go to each door, check that it was locked. We had sliding glass, when he would make sure that everything was locked. He wanted to make sure we were all safe, because it was a crazy time during those times. And you could just drive up to our home. And in fact, there were movie star buses that would go by. That's Dean Martin's house. And people would get out and take pictures. And, so we didn't have, security. We had one guy who would park at night. And, he was our security guard, Michael. And he made sure no one came in. But people would walk up and knock on the door and go, uh-oh.
Wow.
It was a different life back then, a different time era. And people were respectful to my dad and to everybody. You would never, it wasn't like today. So it was, but it was such a fun time and a beautiful home and great friends. And I went to school with Desi Jr., Lucy Jr., Anita Montalban, went to Marymount with Tina Sinatra, so it was a great life growing up.
I will tell you, I mean, everyone knows that not many singers or bands beat the Beatles in the top 10, but your dad beat them at the number one song. Everybody loves somebody or something, right? He beat the
Yes, he
Beatles in the
did.
#1 slot.
Yes, he did. And Frank Sinatra couldn't do it. So he sent 2 telegrams. He sent one to Frank Sinatra and one to Elvis Presley. And he said, I did it. You know, he knocked the Beatles out of first place. So he was very excited about
That
that.
was a proud moment for your
It
father.
was a very proud moment. And, you know, and he didn't even call his PR guy to have him do it. You know, my dad was so low key, you know, if it, he was proud. So he sent one to Elvis, one to Uncle Frank, and it's over. You know, it was good. It was amazing. And meeting the Beatles was unbelievable for me. You know, that's wow, fabulous.
It's fantastic.
Who was your favorite Beatle, Deana? And just tell me what it was like when you met him.
Okay, well, my favorite was George. And my sister, you know, Claudia liked Paul, Gail loved John, you know, so, and everybody loved Ringo. I remember Ringo coming over to the house, and I think my dad said, well, hello, John. And he says, I'm Ringo. And Dad says, I call everybody John. Yeah.
Very funny. Let's see the picture, Plastic.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic photo. I also want to ask you, did you actually collect Beatle memorabilia in 1964 at all, Deana?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fact, I think they're in storage right now. I have gorgeous pictures of them, but the Beatles, you know, they were just incredible. But the people that we met, it was amazing. You know, the Rolling Stones, when Dad did, they were on, let's see, Hollywood Palace with him. And I remember him calling me. He said, Deana, get your sisters. I don't know who they are, but they look like they just got off the boat. And they'll, you know, so come over to the Hollywood Palace and you'll meet these guys. And I walk in, it's the Rolling Stones. He said, Dad, oh my gosh. He said, I know you'd love them. You know, so it was amazing, my life.
Confirm with me, because I have a vague recollection. Were you ever on the dating game?
Yes, I was on the dating game, and I picked bachelor number 2, who was Steve Martin.
I thought I knew that from you. So you picked
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, and he was a writer for the Smothers Brothers show at that time. So I was making some movie. So they put me on, my agent put me on there, and I picked Steve Martin. I'm so glad I picked him. He was so funny. They ended up sending us to Portofino, Italy.
Wow, that's a date.
Yeah, that was a date. And it was fun. He was one wild and crazy guy. We had a chaperone who was younger, I think, than Steve, older than me, but it was fun. Portofino.
Now, Plastic, I have a question for you. If Deana married Steve Martin, what would her name be? Deana Martin.
Deana Martin. Deana Martin.
Now, Chachi and I, as I said, grew up with Dean Martin. And here in Australia, the Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis movies are the classic movies of all time. And here, our culture grew up on those movies. That's why I'm more influenced by Dean Martin, his music, his fantastic acting, the comedies. He did it all, and there's no one that beats him in the category of coolness. He was Mr. Cool. He has more effect on me, unfortunately, than Frank Sinatra, because to me, Frank was a crooner, but he didn't do these type of movies. It wasn't something that it was his genre. And that's why Dean Martin is still one of the biggest acts out there. When I mean that, everybody loves Dean Martin. There's no doubt about it. The world loves Dean Martin. But not only that, they love you too, Deana. And I want you to know that.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
we try, you know.
And before we go, Deana, we would love for you to come to Boston sometime, but I know you do a lot of shows. You're going to the Grand Ole Opry. You're going to it. You're going to Atlantic City. I watch TCM all the time, so I know you're going on a boat cruise.
Oh yes, that's going to be it's going to be great. That's next month, I think.
I would go, but I can't swim and I get seasick.
Oh no!
But
I'll save you.
Then I just might go. And you know, you've had a movie career as well. And just one thing, I remember you being in a movie with one of the greatest character actors who did so many different things, Vito Scotti.
Oh my gosh, Paisano.
Tell me about Vito. He's in everything.
He was hysterical. And the whole premise of the movie was, very, very funny because he was a director. He was he was producing a movie, but he didn't want to pay anybody. Okay, so he would have, people come down to the beach, and he'd put a microphone, in the blanket, and he would try and do the scene. But he was hysterical, and there was just something about him, just his name alone, Vito Scotti. But I know that we would sometimes after the rehearsal, we would go to, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but all the waiters were opera singers. And we would go in there after we would rehearse, and everybody would sing. And Vito was just, he was a kick. And I have a big poster from the movie up on my wall as you walk in the front door.
I tell you, Plastic, she's legendary. Deana Martin, legendary.
I just want to say, Deana Martin, we salute you. We want everyone to go to your site, deanamartin.com. And I just want to say, from around the world, we love you.
Thank you. I love you. Cheers.
Cheers, Deana. From Boston to Melbourne to you, we say we love you and be well. And we hope to see you again soon.
You will. Thank you. I'll see you Friday. Okay.
See you.